Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you, and I hope you're well. My daughter lives in Santa Rosa, where there's a big fire right now. Many of you are probably aware. I think it just started on the weekend. And Sunday evening, she had a mandatory evacuation. And she's okay, but she's not sure if her house is there or not. And when she was evacuating, she told me that they're packed up in the car. She and her two cars, her husband's in one, she had the kids in another. They're caravanning out, and there were so many cars trying to get out that they're on the road, but it was just a big traffic jam. It took them like 40 minutes to go maybe a quarter of a mile or something like that. And she's been, this is her third time to evacuate in 4 years. They've had so many fires up there. But this, she said, was the worst. And she while it was happening, she texted me, she's talking to me on the phone, she texted me photo, and the flames are, I mean, they look like they're 100 feet, 200 feet high. It was just amazing. And it was only a few hundred feet away from her, moving towards her on the road. And she didn't know if she said she didn't know if she was going to make it. He's telling me this. I was not laughing at the time. And so we were texting a little back and forth, and she said to me, I said, are you scared? I actually asked her afterwards. There was a break in the call. She finally got to a spot. She called me. She said, okay, we've gotten past the fire. Traffic's moving. I'm on the freeway. We're okay. And she went to stay at a person's house that they had near there. And I asked her at the time, and this was maybe an hour after it happened, if she was scared. And she told me that that she actually wasn't scared. She must have had some fear, but that it was so intense that an intense focus came over her. I don't know if she conjured it up or if it just happened due to the intensity. You know, she's got her two kids there, and she just was making a plan. What am I going to do if the flames overtake us? And she was paralleling a creek that was just right there. So she made a plan that if the flames got to her, she would grab the kids and they would go down into the water in the creek right there and lay in the water. Whether that would have it must have done, I mean, I don't know what that would have done versus, you know, the smoke and the fumes can get you in the heat. So I don't know, but she had a plan. And she kept saying something like that stuck with me of when she was going through it, recounting this, saying, you know, I just didn't know. I didn't know. She didn't think I'm going to die or I'm going to make it. It was just, I don't know. What's my plan? What am I going to do? It was really a sense of I want to talk about this a little bit. I'll come back to this idea of it's kind of like a Zen phrase you'll hear of don't know mind, which some of you will have a sense of what that means and don't. But I thought she entered that kind of a space where clearly needed to deal with what was happening, very intense. She must have had some fear. From what she's describing, she probably has residual trauma symptoms. I'd be surprised if she didn't. And it's an interesting question when things are falling apart, burning, figuratively or metaphorically, all around us in different forms, and it can be intense and scary. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't. And so really the question is, what are we going to do? How are we going to be? How are we going to act? This is what life is always calling us to. So I want to focus on this a little bit this evening. Those of you, many of you have heard me give many talks, and one of the, I tend, and I'm quite aware of this, that I tend to, I think, spend a fair amount of the times when I'm giving Dharma talks on focusing on when I'm coming up against what I call my learning edge, and that's a phrase that I've used many times. And if you're just joining or haven't heard that, what I mean is it's the place where, we all have the areas and what of life, and if things are well within our ability to respond wisely, keep our hearts open, we don't fall into ill will, into hatred, negativity, we don't fall into reactivity, and we're able to meet what's happening in a balanced way. And that's great. And we actually want to bring mindful awareness to those places and know them and feel them, the goodness of those times, and know what is it that supports those times, and so we don't want to just fall into complacency when it's like that. We want to really know and appreciate those times and use those times. But also, we all have the times when life or the situation gets the better of us. And we do fall into reactivity, negativity, difficulty. We may not always be giving our best response. And those are the times that what I mean when I use the phrase learning edges. And I like that phrase because it takes the judgmentalness out of it, right? We all know in various ways at various times we're going to fall down 1,000 more times, right? We know that's going to happen for all of us. We're not going to be perfect, but we can fall into beating ourselves up and judging ourselves, or we can use those times to teach us, to help us, to really bring some discernment, to see, well, what's going on, and to know, oh, this is a time maybe it's too much for me, or there's something with the quality, the intensity that's hard for me, it's not so easy for me, or maybe it's well beyond our, not just a little bit, just feels like it's well beyond our ability to be with. And so because I find that those times are, and they come for all of us, are tremendous learning times, I do tend to focus on those. And oftentimes, many of you have heard me, I will share about a difficult situation and how it was challenging for me, and then I'll share how my best attempt to work with it. Just maybe sometimes we hear other people share what worked or didn't work for them, and it can be useful. And then other people will share their own perspectives, what works or doesn't. And I think that's a way where we can all support each other. So that side of the equation, I think, will always be important. I think so. But tonight I want to focus on the other, this is a little clumsy or artificial way of, just as a way of speaking, but the other side of it, and just a thing that can be tricky is I don't know if it happens so much these days, but it used to in the Buddhist world, back when I was younger and in my early days in the Buddhist scene. There's all these talks that were, I guess they were the theory, the teachings, and they felt very idealistic about, love and compassion and liberation and all this stuff, as if which is great when we want to do that, but we also don't want to set up a feeling of something that's far away and remote from what it actually is to be a human being, even for those of us who have probably gotten a lot of good fruits from our practice. But I think it's also important, and this is what I'm going to spend the rest of the time this evening, what I want to say is, let me back up. I'll say what I was going to say in just a moment. I won't forget. A lot of my Dharma practice in life, I don't know about these days, but really I felt like it was a preparation for death. And that's, being a good Buddhist practitioner, I think I'm in good company, and that gets talked about a lot. And, just being able to meet our death, hopefully, which would be nice without fear, with some kind of acceptance, peace of mind, the best we can. And so I think consciously or unconsciously, I used to hold life that way, probably practice that way. I didn't want to, I wanted to not die in fear. Whether that's right or wrong, but I think I did have that a lot. And over the years, it shifted for me. And I think, yes, I still want to not die in fear, and I don't know that that's gone away, but I don't even know if I noticed it until I finally realized that wasn't so operative for me, and I was more interested in just the quality of how I'm living now. And that was really as much or maybe more important than whenever, the end of life comes. And I do think we're called upon, just even when times are good. I don't know. I'm trying to remember back when when life's going all right, and we still have the human condition, and we don't want to become complacent, even to those times. What we're up against when we're really honest about just being a human being in this life, it's big, right? But we don't have to wait for that now. We've got what's going on. It's here now, and we are being called now. And, every day, every moment, life is demanding. It's calling. It's right in your face. You cannot really get away from it. And I guess if you try hard enough, you kind of can. I think if more than ever we're called not to fall into the negativity, the ill will, fear, anger, resentment. We're being called for love, love, love more than ever. We still got to get this moron out of the White House. I'm still got all my worries, all the list of things that we've been saying here in this group every week, and between the pandemic and the economy and social injustice and Western United States and the world figuratively and literally on fire, and what's going on in our politics and our society being, and just wars and suffering around the world. I mean, it's just a lot. We can do this. We know how to do this. We've been practicing. I see who's here now. There's about maybe 15 or so of us here. I think most people here I've known a long time. A couple of names I don't recognize, but most of you I've known for a long time. I know you, and you know me, and together, it's like we can do this. I don't know that we can fix things. That's not my point. This brings me back to don't know mind. We don't know what's going to happen, but that's what's liberating. The choices we make, I want to propose, perhaps don't have to be dependent on the stories that we create about what's going to happen that are being generated out of fear or hatred or anger or whatever. And look, there's plenty of, nobody's going to fault anybody who fall into those forces. I was telling my wife last week, I'm sitting there saying we're called to love and we can do it, and I'm not going back to my learning edge now. I'm saying, no, it's the time to stand in our purpose. But I still said to my wife last week when I found out my brother, I've used him, I owe him, I should send him a thank you note. I'll probably a handwritten one because people like handwritten notes. Because of all the Dharma talks I've gotten on my struggles because he's a Trump supporter. Got a little worse last week when he told me he's not only that, but he's, some of you may not know this, but there's a character named Glenn Beck. He's someone who's so on the right wing. He was so radioactive and toxic, he actually got kicked off Fox News. If anybody's on here who's not in this country, maybe this doesn't mean anything to you, but this is like generating, all the conspiracy theories and everything. My brother's off in that. And I said to my wife, I said, I don't know how it's going to be, how this all plays out, but given what I didn't know he was that extreme. I said, I'm really thinking I just kind of don't ever want to speak to him again. She goes, no, you can't do that. I said, yeah, I was really going there. Just like, this is too much. I'm just not going to engage. Fortunately, a sense of purpose, by the way, kicked in to save me. When I say a sense of purpose, I want to be clear. I'm not talking about, is there a purpose a purpose to life. It's kind of like a meaning to life. I actually don't know if there's a meaning to life. People will tell you the meaning of life or the purpose of life is such and such. There's lots of people who are quite happy to tell us that. But actually, I don't believe anybody knows if there is one. Maybe life's just happening. You know, I don't know. But I'm quite content to leave that kind of as the big mystery. I don't know how it is for you. You have to make your own decision. But for me, it's okay to just let it be mysterious. There's a lot that I don't know, way more than what I do know. So I can rest in the not knowing. And then the purpose is really created. And so it's connected to intention. And maybe it's another way of thinking around the same idea, right? So what's the purpose that I want to bring to how I want to live and how I want to be? And in traditional Dharma circles, at least out of Theravada Buddhism, Theravada, that's the branch that tends to, they're into love and compassion and all that, but it's a lot about emptiness and unclinging and letting go. It's kind of on that end. If some of you are familiar with the old Christian Latin language of via positiva and via negativa, the way via positiva in Christianity, the way of affirmation, and via negativa, the way of negation. So the via positiva in Christianity would be, God is, and then you fill in all these positive qualities: all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful, omniscient, that. Via negativa would be sort of stripping away what's not. So you're not, God's not all these things that strip, and then you sort of strip that away, and we don't have to add in. We let what's there, just what remains is self-evident. And so that's kind of the approach that the Theravada, this is a little bit of a generalization, but tends to take. It's more of the via negativa. I would say that. So we don't cling to everything. It's about letting go and not holding on to everything that's not, maybe we say, the deeper truths. And then we let the deeper truths, the deeper realities then can reveal themselves. And then it becomes self-evident. And so that's kind of the way I see the pathway. So a lot of times in Theravada, you don't get the language of love so much. It depends on the teacher. Some of them don't go in that direction. But for me, as I've moved away from some of that particular style of the teachings, to me, and I'll just offer it to you, this may not be your emphasis. You'll have to fill in your own. For me, it's coming more of love. And so that's becoming a purpose. Meeting life with love brings in the non-clinging, the letting go, not shedding anyone out of my heart, making as wise a response to life as I can, and as little of a reactivity type response, right? So I think all of these different ways we may articulate and hold our path or our purpose contains all the rest. If it's a noble purpose, if it's a good purpose, if it's in line with, I would say, with Dharma, you could say. Right? So for me, that word is more and more encapsulating everything. And then the question is, I've been preparing for this time my whole life. All of us here have. You didn't know it. Learning to deepen and letting go, and deepen and being able to be present with ever more difficulty. Little did you know. See, back when it was theoretical, yes, we're gonna be one with all beings, and we're gonna love everybody. We're gonna love the right-wing white supremacists as they kick the crap out of us in the street, and excuse us, a little rough language, sorry, but whatever. But we're in this kind of idealized version. Little did we know what. Now I want to be careful. Some of us did know. You've all had your own suffering and throughout your life, whatever it is. So we've all had our big things to meet. I don't mean to diminish anything. But we're also in a collective time now of all these really it feels like existential threats crushing in from us, on us from all sides. We've been doing this work for a long time, and many of you have touched places yourself of profound love. And there's lots of different doorways to get us there. Meditation is one. There are certain aids, that substances people can use that can help put the mind in good spaces. There's lots of different doorways. And we know what it's like to touch in places of profound love that's accessible, that's here. It's not, it can feel far away when we're not touching those places, but actually it's what's always there. It's here right now. And so we can live out of those places. It can become actualized. And the times when it's not actualized, we know it's there. Just like when the clouds, the smoke clouds are there. You know the sun's up there. It didn't go away. Right? So we still need to deal with the smoke, deal with the clouds, but we didn't lose sight also of what's more deeply true, which is the sun's there. It's just this layer of mist or particles or whatever's in the air right there. When we fall out of love, that fundamental truth hasn't actually gone anywhere, but we just lost the touch with it, that's all. So we it's either an alive experience for us, or we're called upon to get back in touch with it, bring it alive. That's the task when we lose it. So my task with my brother is not to straighten him out or let him know what a knucklehead he is. I've actually already done that, but so I don't need to do that anymore. My task is to get back in touch with love. That's just for me. I'm not trying to tell you your task. I'm asking you, I'm inviting you to find what is your purpose going to be? What is your task that we hold on to? And then we don't get distracted. So when it comes to what to do about, like, just take the presidential election coming up, I think probably every one of us here more or less are in alignment in general politically. There could be a few people on here that I'm not aware of who have quite opposite views. That's fine. You'll find your purpose and task. So I'm not. But for me, you know, all the difficulties around our president and the threats to our existence as of our democracy and all of that. My deeper purpose is to bring the love, but I still need to do what I need to do. In my case, it's taken the form of some giving money, and also I've been writing a lot. I've gotten in touch with one of these groups called Vote Forward, and they're one of many where my wife and I were writing a lot of individual letters that are going to go to people in Georgia. So, you know, you take the actions that you need to take, whatever that looks like. The actions we take will be different for all of us, what we're called upon, what we're able to do. So that's highly individual. Maybe we don't take that much action. We just need to find times to go more inward and just find our inner resources, and that's what it looks like. Or for us, maybe engage more outwardly. But the deeper purpose has actually become more and more illuminated. And the more, I'm going to wrap up in just a minute, I just have a couple more pieces to add. I want to go back to two things. The idea of what I find is helping me is keeping this idea of don't know mind. So I need to know what I need to know, which is this purpose. In my case, I'm talking about a profound place of love. Again, you'll find your own articulation and expression of what it is for you, whatever that is. That is the tremendous support, but also holding this, the don't know mind has been so helpful because, you know, I've fallen into, I think we all have probably so many times, spinning out into fear, creating stories, making up realities. And it's funny because sometimes we want it, it's a tricky thing. We want to be clear. We want to know what's happening. We want to be able to bring discernment and not, you know, close our eyes off or pretend or not see. but sometimes we don't see where, and it's a hard place. We can't see our own blind spots. Sometimes it's hard to see when we are creating realities. And in fact, we don't even see that we're doing that, and then we inhabit those realities, and we don't realize that we've just created those. So the more we can hold, I have found, I'm just offering it to you, I have found the more I can hold the don't know mind, again, it's not, I do know there's things happening and I don't like it. And by the way, the more deeply I let go, that doesn't change. I still don't like it. It's got to change. That's not what I'm talking about. But it allows me, kind of like I go back to with my daughter, who, the fire, it wasn't figuratively, literally was feet away. And this purpose in her case was, where's my plan? And she got actually more effective, right? She didn't spin out and, oh my God, we're going to die, or we're going to anything. It was just like, I'm here. This is the intensities pulling me into the moment. What am I going to do? So I found that has been very helpful for me. And I offer that, if any of those things are useful for you.